Yeah, I mean, this is what lies behind the idea. I'm just keeping it real, and it's all of this is somehow, you have to get down to the core of you, which is are just these. What does he call them here exactly? This stock set of ideas that each person kind of gets.
Yeah.
Um, I really like that point, and it's frightening and very very good to remember.
Yeah. We'll have to do like a more videos on this topic of like first reaction and live in the now and this stuff because it gets more nuanced than that though. This ideology of like live in the now. There are positive aspects of it, but
Yeah,
the way it's generally used, I don't like at all. I think
it's
it's this muddled,
manipulative.
exactly. It's this muddled up thing. It doesn't work like well, what did Jackie was it sorry, Bruce Lee said, don't think, feel, right? It boils down to this. I mean, how do you use this phrase? And
I mean, it doesn't it also kind of imply that thinking is something alien, something not part of you? I mean,
yeah,
this is what I don't like. I mean, like, sure, go ahead and say that, your reaction is you if you want to, but don't tell me that my thought out reaction isn't just as real, right? It's just
yeah,
that kind of that whole idea that like, no, people can't ever really be friends.
yeah,
Like that thing we talked about with Wittgenstein, right? I mean, like,
yeah,
nobody can ever really be friends.
yeah.
Well, yeah, they can if they do what they're supposed to do.
Men and women can't be friends because the MRI scan
Yeah.
showed chemicals increasing, right, in certain areas of the brain.
And that's
Well,
keeping it real, right?
yeah,
See? Chemicals.
chemicals. I mean, it's not like the condition of being friends is chemicals, by the way. In case everybody forgot that. What is the criterion of friendship? Well, it's not chemicals. I don't know. I just really liked when he talked about the anti-intellectual nature of the masked man, and the phrase he used was, "The ideas of the masked man are appetites in words."
Oh, that was good. Yeah.
What a great phrase that is. And a lot of it boils down to this. It's what somebody like Charles Taylor would call weak evaluation. In other words, it's almost like choosing what you're going to have for dinner. You just kind of sit, and the decision kind of works itself out, and you're not quite sure why. If you really dig down deep, if you're debating between pasta and pizza, and you're sitting down, and you're going to arrive at one. But if you ask yourself why, you're probably not going to come back with an answer. This is this kind of thinking, right? It's just almost instinctual. And the scary thing is with the masked man, like you said before, there probably is a reason. He's just not conscious of it. I mean, it's not like real appetites. Real appetites. Maybe there is no real reason to articulate for pizza per se, but there might be a story to articulate, a manipulative story to articulate for the masked man that he is totally unaware of. But I mean, he's working at this level. He's not thinking it through. Whereas something like a stronger reasoning would be, I have a reason to support my decision. Like, should I go to war or should I help my sick mother? Well, I got to sit down and think about which one is better. And I'll have a reason. When you ask me why, I have a reason why. This would be a stronger form of reasoning. And I like how Ortega points out that a lot of people just don't do that.
It's talking about direct action. The masses always have to intervene directly with everything, right? Their intervention is always through violence. But this part was especially interesting to me. All our communal life is coming under this regime in which appeal to indirect authority is suppressed. In social relations, good manners no longer hold sway. Literature as direct action appears in the form of insult. The restrictions of sexual relations are reduced. It's interesting. Like, that's part of the whole keeping it real
Yeah.
kind of ideology at work again here. Like, instead of believing that you have to live in a community of people that you're going to see again the next day, right? It just kind of takes the form of just immediate strikeout violence against somebody that's done you wrong.
Yeah.
And there's no need to. Why would you resort to dealing with another person as if he had reason? And I mean, maybe the masked man doesn't even think that there is anything to appeal to anyway. I mean, if there is nothing to appeal to, the only recourse is a striking out and back in a very violent form, whether it be insult or whatever.
Yeah, you're right. This takes it back to the whole don't think, just act. I really wish I had a copy of The World is More Representation here, but it just reminds me of that part. That part really stuck with me, where Schopenhauer said, like, when you do that, what you end up doing is you end up resembling he calls it, like, you end up resembling the species.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you don't end up resembling you as an individual. You end up representing you, like the general characteristics of the species. It was a very strange point. That's why I remember it so well, but I like it a lot because you kind of end up becoming, and this is what Ortega uses, becoming like this kind of primitive man.
Yeah,
right? He calls it primitivism.
Instead of becoming more real, you become more animal.
Yes, yeah. And then, I mean, but this kind of works right into the ideology, doesn't it? Like, I mean, if you were to sit and think of something, that might be unique to you. But I mean, this is the whole point. The point is to escape what is unique to you. The point is to get down to these first reactions that are accessible and understandable to everyone. And this is what's highest now. This is the key that unlocks the door into the group of man. And you get to sit in there, and then now you don't have to worry about taking responsibility for your decisions, because that's all made for you, right? You're just being a man. You're just being a general person. You're part of the group.
And how do you take responsibility for keeping it real?
Yeah,
right?
right.
I mean, whenever anyone says that, that's basically their key to get away from taking responsibility.
Exactly. And that's what it means sometimes. Like, why did you say that? Well, hey, I'm just keeping it real. I'm just keeping it real. I have a right to keep it real, don't I? Right? I mean, and again, this is still in the modern world. Like, people use this as an excuse to be rude, right? Or to insult people when they want to, and they want. I see this all the time.
But just to make sure that we don't cause any misconception, Ortega does say that it is necessary to shed some of these overly refined customs and cultures, right? Like the dating procedure in the early 1900s and coming out of the Victorian era needed to be pruned down. Yeah. The customs of politeness were too complex and too restrictive, and they needed to be pruned down, right? Okay, so sometimes cultures do shed their dead skin and dead limbs in order to have create a new life. And he sees that. He's fully aware of that. But it doesn't justify any of this kind of excuses that people pull out as, basically they're the real them.
Yeah. I almost, this kind of goes back into the whole, what is the legitimacy of don't think, feel, don't think, act kind of thing. This is where some of that actually comes in. Right? Maybe some of the thinking has been too narrow, right? Maybe it hasn't taken into account certain pains and pleasures, certain emotions that lead to a satisfactory life, and we need to reevaluate our systems and our culture and our mores in order to include maybe new developments in emotion, new or old feelings we've suppressed for a long time, and reevaluate the standard for what's a good life. And this is where this stuff kind of comes back in as legitimate, but it actually has a reason here, and not just like, whatever, I just thought it just popped in there.
Yeah, I'm just doing whatever, right? That's not the reason. I mean, when Bruce Lee said that, he wasn't like, I don't know, jumping around like a clown when he was doing his martial arts moves. I mean,
yeah.
He was fully trained in martial arts.
Only then can you say that. I mean, it seems like those are the words of the master. Right?
You're not the guy in Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. I'm sorry, everyone. You're not that guy.
Yeah, you're more like the cop that shot that kid. Right? Yeah. Most likely, you're going to be that cop that shot the kid who had like a wallet or something, but he thought it was a gun.
Yeah. So maybe the motto for everyone should be think and rethink and
Yes.
then act. I mean,
Yes.
and just like we have to study geometry for 10 years before we get into Plato's awesome school, maybe we should like check our ideas for the first like 50 years. And then maybe you can start working on instinct. Maybe, I don't know. Gonna put that above my school.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's score points on the internet now and talk about science,
Oh,
because this is the new atheists have a hard on for science, and that's a good thing. Why not? So
oh yeah.
Ortega definitely brings up a great point here. He says one of the biggest things that he's shocked about with the new man, one of the greatest signs of a kind of a fall, degradation, is the way the new man reacts to science,
Mm.
which is really kind of interesting. He says, I mean, it's not such a difficult point. He basically says science forms the basis for what the mass man does and lives and can do and provides the wealth that he experiences all the time in his life, and yet he feels no gratitude toward it.
Yeah.
He doesn't, of his own, just not having been told anything of his own, he just doesn't fall on the ground and worship how awesome science is. I mean, so, he wants everyone basically to be Jesse Pinkman, like, yeah, science, right? Science, bitch. And he wants, Ortega thinks that, if you just thought about it for a second, everyone should be like that. But the mass man does not. In fact, he kind of makes an enemy of science. Why is this sounding so familiar in America? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. That part was wonderful. I mean, you can take it a lot of interesting ways. But, I mean, just on the surface of it, these kind of creationist guys who deny biology, and they go home and they use technology that was produced through the research of biology. And you're kind of like, the very foundations of your world have been made by what you just spent the day denying. Or these guys who deny geology, right? Like, oh, those rock formations, that's not evidence of an old Earth. And they go home and again start, using all this technology that was based on principles in geology.
As if, like in empirical truth, I mean, we're basically always using the same kind of method, right? The scientific method. So, it has worked for these other things, right? So, I mean, it's still kind of in that same scientific framework. We're using a tool we've discovered to discover how the empirical world works, and to deny that just when it doesn't feel good really shows you to be the spoiled child you are.
Yeah.
And then to say, like, well, yeah, 95% of the scientists in the world, yeah, you might have thought about this for a long time, but I just woke up this morning and I felt like that can't be true. So it's not true.
See, the problem is we just don't. What we need like a field of people whose job it is to look into these issues and investigate it. So, and then if we had this like a profession almost of people who looked into these issues to see whether they're true or not, we could be
like testing them and then testing them against like observable data against observable data. Yeah.
With real laid out procedures, so we all know they're not just making things up.
Oh, in a community of people.
Yeah,
a community of people that would check them.
Exactly. They'd have to evaluate each other's work to make sure someone's not getting away with something. Right. A group like this, if only a group like this existed, we would be much better off.
Yeah, maybe even someone that could like try to recreate what they've been claiming is going on, right? Like with experiments and stuff too. I mean, if only science could do something like that. Wow, that's a really good point. That just really knocks Ortega's points just away, right? The mass man, score 1 for the mass man.
Yeah, for the mass man, he won the day on that one.
He got that one dead right. All right, sorry, Ortega.